You're practically dead already." Mariana's words still echoed in the room as my heart skipped a beat. There I was, Clara, 78 years old, clutching my wooden rosary with trembling hands, simply asking for a moment of prayer with my daughter, and she responded with this coldness that cut deeper than any physical pain. The Catholic radio played softly in the background. The rosary beads felt like they were burning between my fingers, and the tears that streamed down my wrinkled face carried decades of unrequited love, of silent sacrifices, of a mother who gave everything and found herself at that moment reduced to an inconvenient burden on her daughter's busy schedule. The silence that followed was deafening. Mariana had hung up the intercom, and I remained there in my favorite armchair, the one my late husband John had bought on installments when she was little. The autumn light streamed through the yellowed curtains, creating a painful contrast between the beauty of the moment and the cruelty of the words I had just heard. It was as if my whole world had collapsed in a single sentence. How did we get here? How did a daughter I carried in my womb, nursed, raised with so much love, reach the point of telling me that I was practically dead already? I closed my eyes and allowed myself to travel back in time to when Mariana was only 7 years old and ran around the house with her curly hair bouncing, holding the same rosary I held now. We were poor, yes, but rich in faith and love. John worked at the factory from 5 in the morning, and I took care of the house, our daughter, and even did laundry for others to earn extra money. On Sundays, she wore her only good dress. I put on my black shoes, the only ones I had, and we went to the 9 o'clock Mass together. On the way, she held my hand and asked me about the saints, about Jesus, about why we prayed so much. "Mommy, why do you pray every day?" she asked me once, when she was about 10. We were sitting on this same couch, and I was teaching her to pray the rosary. I remember how her eyes shone with genuine curiosity, how her little hands held the beads with reverence. Because prayer is our conversation with God, my daughter. It's how we share our joys, our fears, our requests. It's how we ask for protection for the people we love, I replied, kissing her soft forehead. She smiled and repeated with me, "Hail Mary, full of grace." Back then, our simple house was a sanctuary of faith. On the walls, crucifixes and images of saints that my grandmother had left me. On the kitchen table, always a burning candle during prayers. Mariana grew up seeing this, participating in this, being a part of this. When she got sick, I spent the whole night by her side, praying, placing cool cloths on her forehead, murmuring prayers of healing. When she was afraid of the dark, I taught her to pray an Our Father before bed. Faith was the invisible thread that united us, that gave us strength to face financial difficulties, worries, the challenges of a simple but united family. John always supported me in this religious upbringing. "Clara," he would say, "you're raising a girl with values, with character. That's worth more than any material wealth." And I believed it. I believed I was giving Mariana the strongest possible foundation, the love of God, respect for others, the importance of family, the strength that comes from faith. She was a sweet, affectionate child who hugged me tightly when I was sad, who helped me hang the laundry, who knelt beside me every night for prayers. When Mariana turned 15, we managed, with great effort, to throw a simple but beautiful party. John worked overtime for months, and I saved every penny to buy the dress she so wanted. That day, watching her dance with her father, radiantly happy, I thanked God for having such a blessed family. Thank you, Lord, for this wonderful daughter, for this dedicated husband, for this life that, even with difficulties, is full of love. I prayed silently, as tears of joy streamed down my face. The teenage years brought the first challenges. Mariana began to question some things, to be ashamed of our simplicity when she compared our house to those of her wealthier classmates. "Mom, why don't we have a car? Why is our house so small? Why don't you work outside the home like the other mothers?" she would ask, and I saw in the questions not only curiosity, but a beginning of embarrassment about our situation. Even so, she still participated in family prayers, still hugged me before bed, still told me about her dreams and fears. When she went to college, earning a scholarship through hard work, John and I were beyond proud. Our daughter will be the first in the family to have a college degree, he said, his eyes shining with emotion. I prayed every day for her success, for her to achieve all her dreams. During her 4 years of college, she came home less often, but when she did, she was still our affectionate Mariana, still talked to me, still asked for my advice. The transformation began gradually after she graduated and got her first job at a large company. Visits became more infrequent, conversations shorter, displays of affection rarer. She started talking about professional growth, networking, career goals, words I didn't fully understand, but that seemed very important to her. When I tried to talk about family, about faith, about the things that had always been important to us, she would change the subject or show impatience. If you're following this story and it's touching your heart, please subscribe to the channel to continue receiving stories like this, which make us reflect on life's true values and the importance of family bonds. The most drastic change happened when her father fell ill. John was diagnosed with cancer at 68, and during the 2 years of treatment, I dedicated myself entirely to caring for him. Mariana, already in an executive position, visited on weekends when she could. I didn't blame her. I knew she was building her career, that she had important responsibilities, but I felt her absence, especially when John asked for her, when he wanted to tell her about a work achievement, or simply chat with his daughter. During my father's illness, I prayed incessantly. I spent hours with my rosary, asking God to heal him, to give him more time with us. Mariana, when she came, saw my prayers with growing irritation. Mom, instead of praying so much, why don't you research new treatments? Why don't you look for other doctors? Prayer won't cure Dad, she'd say, and her words were like daggers to my heart. How could I explain that prayer gave me the strength to care for him, that it comforted me during sleepless nights, that it helped me believe that, regardless of the outcome, God was with us? When John passed away, 3 years ago, I felt as if a part of me had died with him. 45 years of marriage, companionship, true love. Mariana came to the funeral, organized everything with her usual efficiency, but seemed more concerned with the practical aspects than with the mourning itself. In the days following my father's death, when I needed her most, she quickly returned to her routine, leaving me alone in a house that suddenly seemed too big and too empty. In the months that followed, my health began to deteriorate. The doctor said it was natural at my age, especially after the loss of a lifelong companion. Mariana reacted to each diagnosis, each new medication, each doctor's appointment with increasing impatience and irritation. She seemed to blame me for getting older, for becoming more frail, for needing more and more care and attention. Mom, you need to take better care of yourself. You need to get out of the house, do some physical activity, stop staying here praying all day, she'd say during her fleeting visits. But how could I explain that prayer was my source of strength? How could I say that talking to God helped me endure the loneliness, the physical pain, the longing for my husband, the pain of seeing my own daughter drifting further and further away from me? The Mariana of today was completely different from the girl I had raised. Her eyes, once sweet and curious, were now cold and calculating. Her hands, which once held my face with affection, now incessantly touched her phone, checking emails, answering urgent calls even during our rare conversations. Her voice, which once asked me for bedtime stories, now spoke only of deadlines, meetings, business trips, and complaints about how I was becoming a burden in her busy life. And so we arrive at this autumn afternoon, when all I wanted was a moment of shared prayer with my daughter, a moment of spiritual connection that would remind us of who we were before life separated us. But instead, I received the cruelest response a mother could hear: "You're practically dead already." After the initial shock of Mariana's words, I sat there holding my rosary, feeling the weight of each wooden bead between my fingers. It was the same rosary my maternal grandmother had given me when I was 16, along with a story I had never told anyone, not even John. It was time to break that silence, to reveal the secret I had kept for over 60 years. I rose from the armchair with difficulty, my legs shaky but determined, and walked to the kitchen where Mariana was still shuffling papers on the counter. She looked up impatiently when she saw me standing in the doorway, holding the rosary to my chest. "What is it now, Mom?" she asked with a tired sigh. "I need to tell you a story," I replied, my voice firmer than I expected. "About this rosary, about your great-grandmother whom you never knew, and about why prayer saved our family." Mariana glanced at her watch, always the watch, but something in my expression must have caught her attention, because she put away the papers and looked at me with reluctant curiosity. "Your great-grandmother, Anna, was a very wise woman," I began, holding the rosary. "When I was your age, I thought I knew everything about life, that I didn't need her advice, that her beliefs were old-fashioned and meaningless in the modern world. Exactly how you think about me today." Mariana opened her mouth to protest, but I continued. "My father, your maternal grandfather, whom you never knew, was returning from World War II. He had been seriously wounded in combat and contracted pneumonia that the doctors said was fatal. The treatments at the time were limited, and everyone had given up on him. It was 1945, and I was 6 months pregnant with John, the uncle you knew." Mariana's eyes widened. She had never known that John had an older brother who died in infancy. "Grandma Anna gave me this rosary, and said, 'Clara, doctors do what they can with their hands, but God works miracles with faith. Pray for your father, pray for the baby you carry, pray for the family God wants you to have.'" I thought it was ridiculous, superstitious, but I was desperate. Mariana had completely stopped what she was doing, and was looking at me with full attention for the first time in years. "I prayed for 3 months straight, every day, several times a day, and the miracle happened. My father recovered completely, returned from the war, met you as a child, and lived to be 85. The baby I was carrying, your Uncle John, was born healthy and became one of the kindest men I've ever known." I paused, watching tears well up in my daughter's eyes. "But the story doesn't end there. When you were born, you had serious complications during delivery. The doctors said you might not survive the first 48 hours. I held this same rosary, and made the same promise my grandmother taught me, to pray with true faith. For 2 whole days, without sleeping, without eating properly, I prayed for you. And you survived, Mariana. You became the strong and intelligent woman you are today." Mariana was crying now, tears silently streaming down her face. "When you were in college, and went through that terrible depression in your sophomore year, you remember, when you almost gave up on everything, I prayed again, night after night, asking God to give you strength, to show you the way. You never knew, but it was during those prayers that the internship opportunity that changed your life arose." "Mom," she murmured, her voice choked with emotion, "and when your father was sick, I didn't just pray for God to heal him, because I wanted him to stay with me. I prayed that he wouldn't suffer, that he would have peace, that you would find the strength to cope with the loss. Even when you criticized me for wasting time praying, I continued to ask God to bless your life, your work, your happiness." The silence that followed was completely different from the previous one. It was a silence heavy with acknowledgement, understanding, and regret. "All your accomplishments, all your successes, every time you overcame obstacles, I was here, with this rosary, praying for you. Not because I think you're not capable on your own, but because a mother's love expresses itself this way, always asking for the best for her child, placing them in God's hands. Mariana approached me slowly, as if waking from a long bad dream. Her hands, so different from mine, smooth, well cared for, with perfect nails, touched my wrinkled, calloused hands. Mom, I didn't know. I thought you were refusing to face reality, that you were using religion as an escape. Faith isn't escaping reality, my daughter. It's the strength that allows us to face reality with hope. It's the certainty that we are not alone, that there is purpose even in difficulties, that true love, God's love, family love, is stronger than any adversity. That's when the confrontation I knew was necessary, but feared, happened. Mariana burst into tears, but they weren't just tears of sadness, they were tears of recognition, guilt, and deep remorse. Mom, I've become a horrible person. I've become someone you don't even recognize anymore. I abandoned everything you taught me. I abandoned you. I abandoned our history. I abandoned my own soul. She fell to her knees on the kitchen floor, clutching my hands in despair. When Dad died, I was so angry at him for leaving us, angry at God for taking him, angry at you for continuing to believe after so much pain. I thought that if God existed, he wouldn't have allowed Dad to suffer so much, and I transferred that anger to you, to your faith, to everything it represents, and I threw myself into work like a madwoman, thinking that if I achieved enough success, enough money, enough recognition, the pain would go away, but it didn't. The pain only increased, and with it came an emptiness that I couldn't fill with anything. I became a successful executive, but I became a terrible daughter. I knelt beside her, ignoring the pain in my knees, and hugged her like I hadn't in years. Mariana, my beloved daughter, you're not terrible, you're hurt, you're lost, but you're not beyond forgiveness. Not my forgiveness, nor God's forgiveness. How can you forgive me after everything I said, after how I treated you? I told you you were practically dead already. How can a daughter say that to her own mother? Because a mother's love has no conditions, Mariana. Because I understand your pain, even when it manifests as cruelty. Because I saw the sweet girl you were, and I know she still exists inside you, just lost and scared. We stayed there, hugging on the kitchen floor, crying together all the tears we had held back during years of estrangement. It was as if a dam had burst, releasing all the pain, all the repressed love, all the longing we felt for each other. Mom, teach me to pray again, she pleaded, her voice like a child's. I forgot how to talk to God. I forgot how to be your daughter. I smiled through my tears, and picked up the rosary, placing it in her hands along with mine. You never stopped being my daughter, Mariana, and God never stopped waiting for you. Prayer is like riding a bike, you never completely forget. We began right there on the cold kitchen floor, with the autumn sun streaming through the window and illuminating our tear-stained faces. Our Father, who art in heaven, I began, and she repeated with me, her voice trembling but determined, hallowed be thy name. As we prayed, I felt a transformation happening not only in Mariana, but in me as well. The pain of abandonment, the hurt from cruel words, the loneliness of the past years, all of it was being healed by the power of forgiveness, the strength of unconditional love, the grace that flows when two people reconnect with the sacred. When we finished the first mystery of the Rosary, Mariana looked at me with eyes I hadn't seen in decades, clear, vulnerable eyes, filled with love and genuine remorse. Mom, I want to come home, not physically. I know I have my responsibilities, my work, but I want to come home spiritually. I want to be your daughter again. I want to relearn what it means to love unconditionally, to have true faith, to put family first. You never left home, my dear. The door was always open. I was always here waiting. In the days that followed that transformative afternoon, Mariana began a journey back to herself, to her values, to our family. She didn't abandon her career. She continued to be the successful executive she had become, but she fundamentally shifted her priorities. She started visiting me every weekend, not out of obligation, but out of genuine joy. We prayed together, cooked together, talked about everything, about the past, about the present, about her fears and dreams. She told me about work, but she also asked about my childhood, about my parents, about family stories she had forgotten or never known. Mariana also started taking better care of herself spiritually. She returned to attending Sunday Mass, not out of religious obligation, but because she felt a need to be in communion with God and with other people who shared her faith. She told me she felt a peace she hadn't experienced in years. Most importantly, she started applying the values she had learned at home to her work environment as well. She became more compassionate with her employees, more ethical in her decisions, more aware that professional success without personal integrity is empty. Her colleagues noticed the change, and many commented that she seemed happier, more centered, more authentic. One day, about 6 months after that special afternoon, Mariana came home with a surprise. She had framed an old photograph of us, her at 7 years old, holding a rosary next to me, and placed it on her desk. Now every time I have a difficult decision to make, I look at this picture and ask myself, what would the little girl I was think of this choice? What would my mother do in my place? That day, sitting in the living room, where it all began, she made a request that filled my heart with indescribable joy. Mom, could you teach me everything again? The prayers I've forgotten, the family stories, Grandma's recipes, the values you tried to instill in me, and that I rejected. I want to be a better person. I want to be worthy of being your daughter. I smiled, holding her hands, and replied, my dear, you were always worthy of being my daughter, but it will be an immense pleasure to share with you everything I've learned in life, everything my mother and my grandmother taught me. We have time now, we have love, we have faith, we have each other, and so, in this final stage of my life, I discovered that endings can also be beginnings, that the cruelest words can be transformed into bridges to deeper understanding, that true love, the love between mother and daughter, the love of God for all of us, is capable of healing any wound, of overcoming any distance, of transforming any heart. Today, at 78, I don't feel like someone who is dying. As Mariana had said on that painful afternoon, I feel like someone who is living fully, perhaps for the first time in years. I have my daughter back. I have our shared faith back. I have purpose and joy again. The lesson I learned, and that I hope to pass on to anyone going through family estrangement, conflicts with children, or loss of faith, is that it's never too late for forgiveness, never too late for love. Never too late to start over. Words can hurt deeply, but true love has the power to heal any wound. Sometimes, the people we love most hurt us most deeply, not because they hate us, but because they are lost, wounded, struggling with their own pains and fears. As mothers, as fathers, as family members, our role is not to retaliate in kind, but to keep the door open, keep the love burning, keep the faith alive, that love always wins in the end. Mariana today is a transformed woman, not because she abandoned who she became, but because she integrated who she always was with who she chose to be. She continues to be successful professionally, but now her achievements have meaning because they are grounded in solid values. She remains intelligent and determined, but now her strength also comes from humility and faith. And I, Clara, discovered that being a mother is not just giving birth, caring, teaching, and loving unconditionally. Being a mother is also knowing when to make yourself vulnerable, when to reveal your own secrets and wounds, when to show that we too need forgiveness and understanding. It's knowing that raising a child is a lifelong process, and that sometimes the greatest lessons happen when we are already old, and they are already adults. The wooden rosary my grandmother gave me remains one of my most precious possessions, but now it has an even greater meaning. It is the symbol of a faith that has passed through 4 generations of women, each facing their own challenges, each finding in prayer the strength to love, forgive, and begin again. When I look to the future now, I don't just see an old woman waiting to die. I see a woman who has reconciled with her daughter, who has instilled true values in the next generation, who has shown that love and faith are real transformative forces. I see a woman who at 78 still has so much to offer, so much to teach, so much to love. This is my story, a story of pain transformed into healing, of estrangement that became reconciliation, of despair that became renewed hope. It's a story about the power of forgiveness, about the strength of a mother's love, about the importance of faith in our lives. If you're going through something similar, if you have a child who is estranged, if you've lost your faith, if you feel you're being treated unfairly by your own family, know that there is always hope. True love has the power to move mountains, to heal broken hearts, to reunite separated families. Sometimes we just need the courage to show our vulnerability, to tell our deepest truths, to reach out even when we've been hurt. Life has taught me that we are not victims of circumstance, but architects of our own destiny. Through the choices we make, we can choose resentment or forgiveness, isolation or connection, despair or hope. I chose forgiveness, I chose love, I chose faith, and that choice transformed not only my life, but my daughter's life as well. Today, when Mariana calls me every morning to see how I am, when she picks me up so we can go to Sunday Mass together, when she sits beside me as we pray the Rosary, I thank God for allowing me to live long enough to see this transformation. I'm grateful for giving me the strength to forgive, to love unconditionally, to never give up on my daughter. This is the power of forgiveness. It not only liberates the one who forgives, but also transforms the one who is forgiven. It's a gift we give not only to others, but primarily to ourselves. It's the choice to write a beautiful ending to a story that seemed destined for tragedy. And so I end this account with a heart full of gratitude, peace and hope. Gratitude for having lived a story of redemption, peace for having my family reunited, and hope that my experience can inspire other people to never give up on love, never give up on family, never give up on faith. Love always wins, always.